Hello and good afternoon to everyone in Egypt. Thank you so much for waiting, and thank you for your time in joining us today for online teaching and learning in an unsettling environment, strategies and tools. My name is Sarah Shuja, and I'm a marketing manager at McGraw Hill based in Dubai. Today we have an exciting session planned for you, and we hope you find it useful. It has certainly been a challenging few months for everyone. But we're hearing encouraging news about back to school and back to universities from everyone around the region. I'll just quickly brief you on the webinar agenda before we start off. So we have with us Moena Krago, who will talk about online teaching and the science behind learning. We will then hear from our wonderful instructors from different parts of the world share their knowledge and experience of teaching in an unsettling environment. So we have Dr. Connie Michelle, who is joining us from Saudi Arabia, who will tell us how she builds the curriculum plans and key features she uses while teaching online. We also have Professor Bo van Dier from Netherlands, hello, who will share do's and don'ts in an online teaching and how he does it in his class. And finally, we have Dr. Wafa Salah from Egypt to talk about the impact of online teaching and learning and assessment in a COVID environment. So all of these instructors are going to share their class experiences and go over how they've done it in their class and how it's useful for us. And I'll just go over the moderators now. So moderators, moving on to the moderators for today, my colleagues Afsana and Mohammed and I will be moderating this session. So if you have any questions for the speakers, please add them in the Q&A box that's on the right side, or you can also chat to us using the chat box that's also on the right side. Once they're presenting, and if you have any questions, please type them up. We also have a Q&A session in the end, so you can cover them at that time too, but we're there in the background to sort of help you out if you have any audio issues or you have any questions. Now, before I hand over a bit of background, lastly on the speakers, Moena Krago is a Director, Enterprise and Business Development at McGraw Hill International. She has been with McGraw Hill for 12 years. You can read about a lot of amazing stuff that she has done. She works across Asia, Australia, Europe. And we also have our instructors. We also have Dr. Connie Michelle, Assistant Professor from Prince Sultan University, Saudi Arabia. Thank you for joining us. We know it's late in the evening for you, Dr. Connie. I'm not going to go through the details of all the instructors. You can read about all the amazing work they have done in the bio that's on your screen. We also have Dr. Professor Bo van Dier, who's an operational management instructor. And apologies, I'm going to not pronounce this university correct, Bo. It's Nairobi Business University, Netherlands.
If you mangled up my name even worse, it's Bo van Dier, and it's not in Roda. But that's okay.
Thank you. And then finally, I'm sorry about that, Bo. I'll just refer Bo. And Dr. Wafa Salah, who's an accounting instructor at British University in Egypt. Thank you, everyone, for your valuable time in joining us today. Thank you, and we hope you find this session useful. I will now pass over to my colleague, Afsana, who will go over a few housekeeping slides, and then we can begin. Thank you, Afsana. Can't hear you.
Thank you, Sarish. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay, so as Sarish just mentioned, we'll just cover off a few things before we begin. So just in terms of your audio, you all seem to be logged on fine in terms of sound. Can I just do a quick sound check? You always raise your hand and then double check we can all hear. There should be a hand icon just next to your name. Yep, perfect. Managed to get a few. So in terms of just the sound, if you do have any issues, I would recommend calling you using your phone, just because it means you're not being impacted with your internet. Any high kind of bandwidth platforms that you are using on the same internet can also impact your connection. So this may be from YouTube, Netflix, or any gaming platforms. If you do, for any reason, miss any parts of the webinar, we are recording the session and we'll be sending that through on email to everybody afterwards as well. And there will be a Q&A at the end. And then finally, just in terms of asking questions, so the chat box and the Q&A on the right-hand side, as Sarish mentioned, we're here to just kind of moderate any questions you have, any comments. If you have any technical difficulties, you can also message me in the chat box and I will help to resolve those. And finally, just with the recording, we will also have your certificates, which will come to you all within a week of the webinar. And we can now begin. So I'll pass it over to you, Nana.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. And Afsana, would you mind just letting me know when I'm sharing my slides?
Yeah, we can see your PowerPoint.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I know it's a particularly difficult and busy time for everyone, so we really appreciate you making time to come and join with us today. I'm only going to speak for a few minutes, and Sharish and Afsana kindly introduced me. I've got a background in working with instructors across the world in learning design and helping them to set up online courses, be that blended, flipped, wholly online, to be as effective as possible with the student outcomes, and also to make that as easy as possible for our instructors. So I'm only going to take a few minutes to share with you some of the insights that we have about the ways that we help to support effective learning, and then some of the tips and tricks that I generally share and have also learnt from instructors around the world. And then, of course, I'll be passing over to our very esteemed users of Connect, our platform across several different disciplines. So I'm going to extremely briefly just touch on what is Connect at the very beginning here, because just in case there is anyone who is not aware of the platform that we're going to be talking about today and the way that that interacts with our learning management system. I'll spend a minute or two just looking at how McGraw Hill has really transformed from a textbook publisher into a company that puts its heart and soul into developing products that help to develop the most effective learning for our students. We know that that will help them to be more successful, and that's what we're all about. And then just a couple of quick tips in terms of how you might put together your course online, how things like structure, support, timing and time on task, and also the feedback that we give our students can be critical to ensuring that your course is successful and that you have a more positive outcome with your students. And of course, I'll be sharing with you a few tips and tricks along the way and also towards the end. So I don't think it needs a lot of explanation for me to say that this is a really difficult time. Instructors that I'm working with now who might be into their second week of semester or just about to start or have a few months are really being asked to develop an incredible number of new materials, to develop not only a plan A, but also a plan B, and sometimes even a plan C. So as you look at what's happening around the world, you may be planning on face-to-face teaching and have that withdrawn at the last minute, and so have to go to that plan B. And that's really what we're here to do, is to help you to make that an easier process. We know how incredibly stressful that is. And so, all of the products and services that we provide are really designed to help you be the most effective part of the process, because ultimately it's all about your teaching and your interaction with your students. So whether this is only partially online or, blended or completely online, we want to be here to give you that advice. And as I said, you'll be hearing from some wonderful faculty members who have had great success rolling out Connect with their cohort. Cohorts plural. So what is Connect? Look, Connect is really an online learning platform that we have that can interact and sit seamlessly within your learning management system. So something like Blackboard or Moodle. So we spend our time creating curated resources that help to support the way that you want to teach, and also some quite sophisticated functionality to ensure that you're able to deliver in the way that you want to. So right at the end, I'll just mention some of the ways that we're now enabling a lockdown functionality to ensure that you can do your very best to prevent cheating if you do need to teach in a fully online environment. Now, we've had quite some great results. Certainly, I know Bo will bring up some of his results later in this meeting in terms
Absolutely.
of students. Yes, thank you. Yes, and they are really good. So I hope that makes sense in terms of what is the difference there between Connect and a learning management system. Learning management system really helps to manage your students, and it's a management solution platform. It's not generally filled with content that is either text related or agnostic to support the way that you want to teach. And so we work with the technology that you have to ensure that students can seamlessly plug into that, and you can pick and choose what fits you. And we really build our platform around our adaptive capabilities as well. And it's adaptive that I want to spend a moment on here, and I believe you'll be hearing Connie and Bo talking about products like SmartBook or Learn Smart. Names aside, really what we've done is try to understand, looking at seminal learning theory, how do students learn most effectively? What can we do to support that learning experience? How can we elevate students when we know they're not going to spend as much time reading or practicing as we would like them to do? So just a couple of the ways that we've built our adaptive, and I'm going to refer to that generally as SmartBook today, is things like the theory of deliberate practice, so that we know that students or anyone in general will get better if they deliberately practice. And so we put students through questions that will continuously return questions to them at the right time for them to practice again. We base our products on memory decay, so we know when students are most likely to forget what they've just been learning, and we try and send that back to them. We think about elements like game design in terms of, when a student is frustrated and struggling, we actually pick that up and we'll go and look in the back end and try and send them at least 4 questions in a row that we know that they know the answer to, so that they can try and regain some of that confidence. And we try and incorporate things like spaced practice. So when is the right time for a student to return back to work they've been learning? How is the most effective way to put together the different concepts so that they are most likely to keep those in their mind and keep that for a longer term? So we're looking at moving well beyond memorization, and we're looking at helping students to put things into a long-term memory. As I mentioned, SmartBook is really at the core of almost all of our Connect offerings, and that's an adaptive study experience, which sends students between algorithmically designed questions and our online reading. And as you'll hopefully hear a little bit later, that has been quite successful in driving students to do a little more reading than they might otherwise have done. And it also gives you excellent insight into even the exact learning outcome that your class is struggling with. And it's all about having that visibility when you're teaching in an online world, so that you know if engagement is dropping, so that you know what to focus on. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of background. And now we're just going to move straight into some course design tips that, as I mentioned, I've worked on with instructors in different places. They've taught me things. Sometimes I get to teach them things, but it's probably the other way around. So there are really 4 key elements if we want to break this down into how we can create an effective online course using your materials, our materials, and creating a course that meets the learning outcomes that you need to. And those things are very much time on task, support, structure, and feedback. So I'll quickly pop through those. I will be sharing these slides, or Shirish and Afsana will be sharing these slides. There is some additional detail, and I'll be on hand throughout the session if you have any more questions. So when you think about building a course in Connect, and I should just step back for a moment and say that there is loads of support to help you here. We've even partnered with a learning design organisation to create courses that you can seamlessly use yourself and pick and choose from, knowing that they've been built with effective course design in mind. But what's really important is to be consistent with the way that you create your kind of folders and learning materials, as much as possible echoing the syllabus or the course outline in language and naming conventions. And that allows students to sort of seamlessly pass between your learning management system and the materials in Connect, because it's easy for them to see the correlation. They're not fighting to find a piece of information that they need. Where available, many of our products now, which I never thought we would need this much, include a preparing for an online course module, which could be really useful for you. And it helps students to think about things like how they would contact you, how is the appropriate way of contacting you, how to do their work online, you know, what types of resources to use. So that could be useful as well. I always talk about guiding student behaviour with the naming convention that we use. And the simplest tip that I could ever share is really starting with something that behaviourally describes what you would like the students to do. So pre-class study, pre-session study would normally be where we would put our adaptive SmartBook reading and study, because the idea is we want them to do that before class. If they do that before class, we can check into the reports and really guide and navigate our face-to-face time to focus in on those areas that students are struggling with and pull back on the areas that you know that they're performing well with. You might want to put some additional materials in there throughout the week, or you might just want to end up with a post-class quiz, giving them additional chances to practice. So really it doesn't matter what you put in before or afterwards, but giving them that kind of seamless and consistent guidance does prove to be quite successful with students. Right, I've gone through that one. So as I mentioned, echoing the syllabus, here's an example of a course that I've just built out for a partner most recently. That echoes exactly the way that their course outline looked. And those are the folders that I mentioned from the student sort of view. And then within each of those folders, you would have, as you would know from your learning management system, the work that you would like them to do. I always suggest starting with a session 0. Here, you could do things like use your discussion board to get them to engage with other students and start feeling comfortable working with other students online and also with you. It's also where we normally put some documents or little videos to help students learn how to use the resources. And just getting them to practice some of those things, whether that's through your LMS or through Connect, is an extremely useful way to get them kick-started and practicing before they move into their first week. Wanted to just mention this, and I think this should fit nicely into what we've just been talking about. Just one thing that I wanted to mention: when you are setting up your course, the temptation can be to put lots of different things in there and to maybe use the names that are already preloaded. And so I wanted to draw out a very key idea here and apply that to Connect. And that's the idea of cognitive load theory. So intrinsic cognitive load, and I'm sure many of you know this already, is the difficulty of the material or the information itself. So that really we don't, you would, but overall, by the time a course is going to be up and running, we don't have a lot of control over how difficult the material will be. But we do have some control over the extrinsic cognitive load, which is the load generated by how the material is presented. So thinking about a website where there's information all over the place and you're not sure what to click on or do, it's exactly what we're trying to reduce here. Because if that cognitive load exceeds our processing capacity, we're going to struggle to complete the activity successfully. And all that we're trying to do here is prevent students from getting disengaged and frustrated when we don't have that same face-to-face control that we would normally have. And we can really very simply just put that into practice by making sure that we mirror our course outline and try to make the Connect experience seamless and consistent. And we're always there to help you with that. Another key idea I know that you'll all know about is scaffolding, and that's the instructional strategy to provide students with a framework that kind of guides and supports them through the learning. And it's never more important than when students are learning online for the first time, because they're battling with sometimes technology, maybe your learning management system, maybe a technology like Connect, maybe even the device that they're using. So this is really about connecting students' current knowledge with their prior knowledge. and being explicit with students about how new topics and tasks would link back to concepts they've done previously. And the reason I'm really mentioning this is because there's a critical step when we're putting together the Connect course, and that's to spend a couple of moments on the instructions that we set for our students. So we need to tell them, being adult learners, what's the value for them? How long is this task going to take them, so that they know whether I've got 30 minutes, this takes 45, okay, I won't do it. You know, this one's shorter. Giving them that guidance and anything else that you think they're going to need. If they're types of questions or it's a simulation or, you know, any information that you can give them, especially things like you'll have unlimited options to practice or you only get one chance. All those things are really important. So I've just given you an example there. In this task, you'll be asked to watch a short video and answer related questions. So feedback is really important. And feedback, we have some capacity here for you to really enable that and help to help students to be able to really learn as they go. I should mention too, the instructions are a perfect time to link back to what they've been learning earlier, or to let them know how the activity that they're doing is going to help them with future work. So within Connect, the feedback options really important here when you've got less face-to-face contact. So SmartBook, as I mentioned earlier, allows for continuous feedback for students as they're given auto-graded feedback. Again, you might want to allow for more feedback in this setting, so allowing students to get detailed feedback either after each attempt or after completing a quiz. And that can really encourage that low-stakes practice. Obviously, if we delay the feedback, you know, perhaps for high stakes, it can disrupt the learning process. So I just wanted to mention this is a core place that you can really help provide scaffolding for the students and also a supporting mechanism. Many of our courses also offer check my work and hints, which you can use to help sort of motivate and keep students within the system. So I think I've gone over most of this already. Key things here are to provide those help documents in and out of Connect, instructions for activities, and providing as much feedback for students as you can to help them feel connected. You can also reinforce any of your key concepts either by using your own lecture capture software, or we do have a free one that's available for you to do a short video to maybe reinforce what you wanted students to learn that week, or go through some tips or guidance. Time on task and timing is super important. As I said, we'll share these slides and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but really important to think about how long something is going to take for students to do and give them that approximation. That way they can make up their mind about whether they want to start or finish something. So multiple choice, obviously 1 to 2 minutes. Within Connect, you've got the ability to filter and look at your Bloom's levels and maybe decide on how difficult you think that those questions are. And a simple rule of thumb is however long it takes you as the expert, you can multiply that by 3. And with the adaptive study, I would always recommend setting the sliding bar lower for a lower amount of time, because that time only relates to the questions that students answer, not the reading time. So keeping that activity shorter, more engaging, you're probably likely to see better results from students. So if you do need to deliver high-stakes assessment through Connect, please let your McGraw Hill consultant know. I've just managed to duplicate that twice, so that was, and that is also apology. So we do have that available. If you do need anything for the high-stakes assessment, we do have test bank questions, so please ask any of us about how you can access those. And as I'll mention in just a moment, we do have the ability to really step up and help you with potentially preventing cheating. And this is what we have available, excuse me, at the moment, and also what's coming by spring 2021 is the complete package of students being able to show their ID. But right now, you can access in almost all of our products a basic and free level that will give you some great authentication abilities and capabilities to keep your students being able to do high-stakes assessment online. And that works through your learning management system in a partnership with Connect. So there are those three options at the moment. We have the basic, which is free, and a plus version, which you can always ask us about, and premium will become available soon. So the very best advice I can give you from people I've been working with is, as we move into this online environment, communication is key. Give your students a roadmap about the changes as much as you know about them. I always recommend letting students know that it is your first time with this technology, because they're more likely to be understanding. And starting really simply, we have so many things within our products that you could assign for your students, but it's really important, I think, to just start simply. Start where you feel comfortable. Start with that so that you can tweak it later as you go, either later in the teaching period or in the next teaching period. There's no harm in getting, the best stuff that you can get, keeping it simple and seeing how you go with that. We always say in the world of online learning, be careful of designing the course and a half by picking up lots of different activities. So just thinking about the timing of what you're setting. As I've mentioned, do tweak along the way and go easy on yourself. I think everybody here is dealing with a very different world. We are confronted with changing rules and guidelines all the time. We may have more anxious students than we normally would have. And I think those things are really important to remember, and just communicating that out with your students. For the highest chance of success with online learning, assign some graded points that are important for their final mark to some of the online components that will be critical for engagement. We are here to help with support sites, videos, implementation guides, and more. We love to help our instructors to get started. It's what we do, and we're really keen to help you in any way we can. So thank you so much for your time. I don't think I've done too badly on time. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of the session.
Thank you so much. That was really enlightening and lots of details. Thanks a lot. I guess we'll pass on over to Dr. Connie Michelle, sorry.
Hi, Mitchell. No problem. Thank you. I'm just waiting for my slides to come.
You can change them on the left side. You're the presenter.
It's back to you. Okay. Sure. Okay.
Oh, you'll have to go through all of that.
Yes. Okay. All right. There we go. All right. So welcome, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about build curriculum plans with Connect. As you all know, now 6-7 months into the pandemic, and education, higher education, K through 12 schools, we shifted to online education. And we did a great job with it, I think. So a round of applause to everyone who's in the classroom, because this was no easy task. And it's something that is commendable. Today, I want to start my talk off with an icebreaker. So if you can, just in the box, I hope everybody has access to the chat box. Just take 2 seconds and in 2 to 3 words, share, what does online education mean to you? I can't see if anybody's typing or running. I can't see what they're writing. Okay, now I got it.
I can see it too. So it's on the right side, the chat box. If you can just.
Yeah, I got it. I've got it now.
I got
it. Thank you. I didn't see it at first, but now. Anybody care to share? What does online education mean for you? Okay. Well, I'm going to say a little bit what it means to me. A lot of people with online education, they get scared or they don't understand. They think that the learners aren't going to learn as well or as much. I like what Dr. Wafa has said, teaching anywhere and any place. Yeah, it does give you the freedom to be able to teach anywhere and in any place. But I think it's a matter of looking at education in a different perspective. It is, you still have the same teaching pedagogies, you still have your methodologies, the strategies, the different assessments that you need to be using with your student learners. Only you're not face-to-face. You're in the online environment. It doesn't mean that learning isn't going to happen. I think actually we can help support our learners even more with the online components. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself and my experience with Connect. I was teaching an intensive writing course during the summer, online, obviously, because we were not on campus, and we're still not on campus. I'm teaching online. And we chose to use Connect, and the platform we had, what, Kareem can find me, maybe 3 days to switch our curricula, the way it's going to be presented, and upload and get the Connect system up and running for our students. And what I liked most about it is that it really does help the students engage with the teachers, peers, and the content. Now, I'm emphasizing 3 aspects because when we're talking about classroom engagement, student engagement, activity, you look at it from 3 different perspectives. You have teacher to student, student to student, and content to student. And what Marina was saying in her presentation that I really liked is she was talking about how Connect is different than an LMS system. An LMS is just like managing your students. And it doesn't really give you the content-based perspective. Whereas Connect, it really connects you with the content. I hope that makes sense. And then you can help your students be more engaged with the content and with their peers, and I'll give an example of that, and with yourself using the Connect platform. Now, just in the chat box, how many of you have used Connect before? Or ask how many of you have not used Connect? Okay, so if you've used Connect. Okay. Anyone else care to share? Okay, George, you've used Connect. All right, so thank you. So you have a general idea or background knowledge of how we can use Connect. Rana, I think she hasn't used it yet. So hopefully through these slides, and Ahmed said no, he hasn't. Well, then hopefully with my presentation, Bo's presentation, and Wafa's presentation, you'll get a better understanding of how you can use Connect for student learning. Some key features to support your curricular development and the Connect system. As I mentioned, it can be integrated with your LMS system so that the students and yourself can go to one location. It has Instructor Resources, the ebook or SmartBook, depending on the course that you are teaching or the textbook that you select for your course. I used an ebook for the course that I was teaching. creating assignments, there's the Learn, Smart, Achieve, there's the Power process, and I'll explain more what these are in a minute. Something that I really liked was the learning outcome assessment aspect of the Connect platform. Right now, especially quality assurance issues, as educators, we're keen on knowing our students are achieving the learning outcomes that we've assigned to our courses. So Connect makes that very easy for you. You can upload your own learning outcomes. They have learning outcomes that are there. Well, so you can have some sub-learning outcomes and to your different assessments and activities within the platform, and then it gives you a nice report about the achievement of learning. It also gives the report, so she or he can be tracking their assessment of learning as well, which ties right into monitoring student progress. You can check how many students have completed an assignment, how many have started, how many haven't started, and you can give those who haven't started a nudge to get them to finish their tasks on time. Feedback, as Maria was mentioned, it has an excellent system for giving feedback to the students in multiple ways. Detailed feedback, peer review feedback. So it's a great way to give opportunity for our students. Student engagement as well. You have ample opportunity, as I mentioned before, for student engagement with yourself as a teacher, with their peers, as well as with the content. Now, some of the instructor resources, just to give you an idea of how useful they can be for you. You have to spend some time and go through it so you can develop your curriculum to your own satisfaction. But you have PowerPoint slides. I do recommend proofreading them for the content you need. Activities, readings, a test builder, assignments. You can also upload your own material. So it's not like they expect you to just use theirs. You can upload your own materials. Just like I said for the learning outcomes, you can upload your own specific learning outcomes for the course that you are teaching as well. You upload your own assignments that you have created for your students. They have the Spank, the lectures. For this particular course, I was teaching writing, so there was a lot of readings that were available. The Learn, Smart, Achieve feature, which is really good for help the students study and practice advocate for the lessons, as well as any assignments for exams that might happen. Creating assignments, the system is user-friendly. You can show or hide assignments until the assigned date. You can share the assignments with your colleagues or others that you teach. And as we have stated, there's a question bank, the Learn, Smart, Achieve Power process. I really like this one because this gets into the formative assessment and the critical thinking and getting the students to actually process and reflect upon the assignments or the different types of writing, in my case, whether argumentative or process writing, whatever the case may be, it allowed them the opportunity to reflect on that. Of course, the writing assignments, and in here you can also do peer reviews, and you can decide, is it going to be a pair, is it going to be 3 students in a group, and then they exchange their papers, and then they get feedback on another. Blog assignment, if you like to blogging and your students are interested in blogging as well. A discussion board assignment, of course, you can see you can upload an assignment as well, a file attachment assignment. You can also do like a web activity. There are reading assignments. As I was teaching a writing course, we had different readings for the students to help support they're learning about the different genres. Now, the Learn, Smart, Achieve example, it's self-paced and self-study opportunity for students on Connect, and it allows them to self-assess the knowledge and skills prior to answering to the activities contained within this feature of Connect. And it gives them the opportunity. They can decide. I don't have any idea what the answer is. I don't know. Unsure, I think so, and then I know it. Okay, kind of aspect. So, and the student can say that for themselves, and then the system will adapt to whatever choice they make. I really emphasize using the feature for my students to help prepare and study for the final exam, so that they would be prepared for it. I was using it during the summertime, and of course our summer semester is a lot shorter than the normal 15. We only had 8 weeks, so I personally think it was a good feature to help them and prepare for the final exam. And this is the power process example, and as you can see here, you can have reading to understand, reading to write, or other. You can build your own and create an activity for your students. I had my students try out the evaluate an argument. So, and then I selected a reading that was obviously from an argumentative point of view, genre. And then they had to answer questions related to that. I could choose, can they highlight some vocabulary words they had difficulty with, and to reflect on the how it was written. Was it well written? Did it follow the format that we had covered in class, or not follow? Reading to write, here this is reflecting on text, responding to a text, and a revision. And I've had my students do reflection on a text. So, I mean, it's really up to you. So you can get in and play with the system, which is what I did. I just got in and started around and figured out what to do. As I was coordinating the course, I shared everything that I created. I shared it with the other faculty teaching the course, so they had access to the curriculum. And that's another great feature of the Connect system, is you can easily share what is created with your other colleagues who are teaching the same subject with you. It's just a very easy process to do. I just went over this. The learning assessment, as I mentioned previously, it's a nice feature that you can find in the Connect system. And yes, you can upload your specific learning outcomes for your course, and it generates reports from the system. And they have a very useful guide that will go through the whole process and lead you to the creation of a nice report that can be used for your end of the semester. You have to submit a report. I know that we have to here in Saudi Arabia, so we report at the end of the semester how the course went. Monitoring student progress, you can know who has completed this and who has not. You can add, this is a nice feature, you can add extensions for individual students if needed. If somebody wasn't able to complete an assignment on time, you don't have to extend it for everybody. You can log in and you can extend it for that specific student. You can generate reports about progress as well. And as I said, the students themselves can also track their progress. Instructor-student feedback, student-to-student feedback, and then of course, as Moreno was saying, automated feedback from Connect. And you select what you want to do, which is a nice feature. And how to do it. It can do item analysis as well. Assignment statistics, student performance, assignment results. So it gives you a variety of ways, and you choose. You set the policies and the procedures at the beginning of the semester, and then it just makes your life a lot easier. Student engagement. As we know, since we're all, I think the majority of us are teaching online, I'm trying to encourage engaging activities can sometimes be stressful, but we can do it. And Connect can help you try to achieve that. And it will support the student learning. What are some strategies you use to encourage student engagement? If you can type that in the chat box, please. What are some strategies that you use to encourage student engagement? I like cartoons, so I threw a cartoon in there. I couldn't do my homework because my computer had a virus. And so do all my pencils and pens. I'm quite creative, if you ask me. Videos and animations, excellent. I agree, video animation. You can do group work online as well. Graded assessments, yeah, that works as well. Pairing them up, yes, I agree. Breakout rooms, yes, that works. And then you can jump from one breakout room to the other, just like you would do in the classroom. So excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. In conclusion, movement to online education during the COVID-19 pandemic has forced academics to develop their skills and understanding of how to use technological tools. It is about the students' experience regardless. I want to emphasize this last sentence again, so I'm going to say it again. It is about the students' experience regardless of the environment. Even though we're teaching online, we have to support the students' experience. And this is me if you would like to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Connie. Yeah, it's really great to hear your experience about the perspective of using Connect. I like how you mentioned about self-paced and self-study learning opportunity and how you can give feedback to the students and the learning outcomes. That's all really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll now pass over to Bo.
Thank you very much. So I guess I'm in control of the slides now, am I? Yes, there we go.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Connie. It was very interesting for me also to see that you're using Connect for a writing course, because I teach statistics, which is kind of on the other end of the spectrum here. And of course, I'm convinced that Connect is great for numerical classes. I didn't have a clue that it could also be used so effectively for writing classes. Again, on the other end of the spectrum. So just very quickly, who am I? I'm in the Netherlands right now. That's also my home country. I did study in America as well, in Utah. I teach all over the place. I'm going to be teaching in Vietnam soon as well. Also in Utah, Finland, Mexico, and of course a lot in the Netherlands as well. And technically, traditionally and most often, I teach the courses that students love to hate. Some fun courses like learning through games, which is applications of games on operations management, but mostly things like statistics, management science, maybe research for business administration, those kinds of courses that students come in and they're like, I don't want to do this. This is no fun. But I try to make it fun. And one of the big components there is with Connect, of course. So I've been using Connect for almost 10 years now. I'm also a digital faculty consultant for McGraw Hill for almost 5 years now. And here are just a few numbers, how many students have used Connect through my courses over the years. And again, this is all just for statistics. I also did a white paper with McGraw Hill. If you haven't gotten your hands on that, just ask your McGraw Hill representative. They will be able to hand it to you. And that one is, I've done some analysis actually. So not so much on how do you set everything up in Connect. We've heard some great things from Morena and from Connie about that. So let me just talk you through what you can find when you use Connect and some analysis that we can see whether Connect is actually helping the students learn. So for that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I use it. Not so much like how do you set up assignments and all of that, but just how I use it in general. And then I'll show you some results. All right, so in general, I don't teach anymore in the sense that, okay, I'm in a classroom, or now, of course, I'm online, but I don't do a heck of a lot of teaching. I don't like to be talking a lot. I like to just give them a little bit of theory, but that's actually just a recap of what they have learned prior to coming to class, because I use flipped classrooms. And then we just do application. So in statistics, it just means we're going to do a lot of problems. And so basically what it looks like is that students prepare in Connect first by going through some SmartBook assignments. And these have been talked about by Morena and by Fanny a little bit. In terms of a statistics course, you can just pick a few learning objectives that you want them to answer questions on, and they need to answer 2 questions correctly on each learning objective before they can move on. If they answer it wrong, not a problem. They just keep getting new questions. If they answer a couple of questions wrong in a row, then they actually have to go and read the book, the ebook, of course, before they can continue with that assignment. Once that is done, and by the way, Morena mentioned that it's integrated with Blackboard and Moodle. Well, I'm using Canvas. It's also fully integrated with Canvas. So I've pushed these assignments into my Canvas structure, my Canvas LMS. And so once they have done those, then they have to do some preparation quizzes in Canvas, where they watch some of the videos that I've created for the flipped classroom. Then in class, I do a very, very quick review of the theory, and I ask a bunch of polling questions. A software that I use is called SendSteps. You might be more familiar with things like Kahoot or Poll Everywhere. And I've used that extensively over the last decade. As you can see, I've used it for over 350 sessions. I've got over 50,000 votes. That's really a nice way to engage students, also in an online environment, actually. Then the remainder of the session is actually practicing in Connect. And what I mean by practicing in Connect is that I show the question on the board, but it's not the same question that the other students, that the students will see, because I use the algorithmic questions. For a course such as mine, statistics, it's very easy, of course, to say, okay, here's the question, but now we're going to change the numbers. And the reason I do that is that students can then not just sit back and relax and wait for me to tell them what the answer is, because that won't be their answer. Of course, the method's the same, but they have to work through the method to get that same answer. But their answer, which is slightly different. And then after class, I tell them to do homework in Connect, which is just to fix questions, the same numbers, so they can even collaborate on those. But that's what they do then at home. Now, how do I then use it in a class? So I'm going to give you an example of a specific class, and this is the last session that I do with them. The last session in a statistics class is typically on regression analysis. And basically, again, a very brief theory, and then we go ahead and practice in Connect. In Connect, students use that check my work button a lot, because every little thing they put in, they can check their work to see if they actually got it right, in which case they can move on, or if they got it wrong, in which case, well, they ask me for help or they ask their neighbor. So that means that we're going to go through some problems. They're going to be checking my work. And then usually in about a 2.5-hour session, I do only 4 or 5 questions. This goes back to Morena's comments about don't design a course and a half. Because when I first started using this, excuse me, I was like, well, I can do about 10 questions in maybe an hour and a half. So we have 2.5 hours. We should be able to do 10 questions. The problem with that is that at the end of a session like that, students walk away saying, well, we sure did a lot of problems, but I don't understand any of them. So I usually program in Connect about 6 to 8 questions, of which we will do 4 to 5. And the better students can do the other ones as well, because there's feedback and everything in Connect. But the ones that are struggling will just do the 4 or 5. But I want them to come away understanding those questions rather than not understanding a whole bunch of questions. Then they do the homework in Connect, and I keep track of which questions they struggle with. There's something called item analysis, and you can check per item, per question, how well the students are doing on that. And if they score below, my threshold is usually 70%. If they score below 70%, I spend some more attention on that, either through a webinar or by just posting an announcement with a detailed solution. Now, the last session, again, is on regression, and I show a little Excel file here, and I give them this information. As you can see, X1, X2, X3 are independent variables, and you might have to think back to your statistics days if it's been a while, but X1, X2, X3 are independent variables, and Y is the dependent variable that you're trying to explain by using X1, X2, X3 as explanatory independent variables. I don't tell them what X1, X2, X3, or Y are. I just tell them do a regression and remove any variables that don't seem to have a substantial, significant impact on the Y variable, the dependent variable. Now, they do all that. This is at the end of the class. They can do it, but they don't really know what they've been doing because they haven't really actually looked at the data. It's always a bit of a surprise to me. I give them a data set, and they start plugging away in Excel, but they don't really wonder about what they're doing. So at the end, I say, well, what did you actually do? What kind of data is this? And then they start looking at the data, and they say, okay, well, the Y variable is probably grades, and that's correct. These are grades. In the Netherlands, we work on a 0 to 10 system, and these are grades for the statistics exam from last year's cohort that I've stored. Then they go through the independent variables. They say X1, which actually turns out not to have any impact on Y, is gender, right? We have zeros and ones, so that's gender. No impact. X2, you can see that's probably age, and that is true, and those are ages, and again, absolutely no impact on the exam grade. X3 is the only one that has an impact. They don't know what X3 is, and usually there's some guesses about, well, maybe that's study time in hours or something. I say, well, I wasn't in your bedroom, checking how many hours you were studying, so how do I know that? It turns out X3 is something called the online engagement indicator. That's a number that that Connect keeps track of as students are doing all their homework and all their practicing in Connect. And then I create these little graphs. It turns out, of course, that the only thing that has an impact on the grade is this online engagement indicator. There's 4 graphs here. These are from 4 different cohorts of part-time MSc. Part-time MSc, I should explain, that's part-time students. They come every Friday and Saturday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, and they're working the rest of the week. And it's a Master of Science, for which business statistics is a pre-master course that they have to pass in order to be allowed to start the master. Now, you can see here 4 years, 4 cohorts. The upper left is the oldest data. And then it's the lower left, that's the second data, and the upper right is the third data. The lower right one is the most recent data. And you can kind of see there's a bit of a difference in that last one, the lower right. First of all, the R-squared is much higher at 45%. And the dots are much more concentrated on the right. And that is exactly because of the integration that Connect now offers with Canvas, which allows me to push some assignments from Connect into Canvas and make them mandatory for students to do. Before that, nothing I told them to do in Connect was mandatory. I just told them, you should practice, because if you practice, you're going to do better. Now, you can see that in all of these panels. You can see more practice, higher online engagement indicator score, leads to higher exam score, with an R-squared somewhere around 20, maybe 30%, 15% in the upper right. But if you then actually make some of the things in there mandatory, you can see you have a much stronger correlation, and you see that students in general do a lot more as well, because the online engagement indicators are no longer in the 1, 2, or 3 region. They start at 4. So the lower right one is fresh off the press. The other ones are included in the white paper, where we already had a very good relationship between online engagement and exam grades. But now that I'm actually being able to push some assignments into Canvas, it gets even stronger results. So a final question that they asked me is, well, how does the use of Connect change with COVID-19? How does your teaching change? And actually, not really. I can still use Connect very effectively. I teach pretty much the same way. At my university, I was one of the few professors who didn't really have to change a lot in teaching style. I've actually been giving a lot of webinars to my colleagues about how you can do more engaging online teaching, and I always show them things like Connect and the polling and all of that. Of course, there are some differences. The most often heard one, I think, and I experienced that myself as well, is you can't look in a classroom and in 1 or 2 seconds know, okay, these students are struggling, and these students are doing really well. That's the hardest thing. You can't really do that. Of course, I use the chat. I use it extensively. I have students share their screen with me so I can see what they're doing. You can't really have students help each other in an online environment because they're all sitting behind their computers alone. This is why I record my sessions so students can watch back the sessions. And I ask a lot of questions because I want to know if people are understanding. Now this is perhaps the hardest thing to do is, look around and see who's struggling, but there's ways to help. And the advantages are, particularly for a class like statistics, students love the fact that you record a session and you post it. And I love the fact that, by using Connect, when we get to a new problem, I spend a minute or two explaining the problem, and then I say, okay, guys, I'm going to mute myself, turn off my video. You guys work on it for 10 minutes. If you have any questions, pop it on the chat. And that's a good time for me also to just take a little break, take off my headset, just kind of walk around, have a drink, and then check the chat. The first couple minutes, there won't be any questions because students are working on it. And then when the students start asking questions, I go back in. But that used to be the time during a classroom session when I was running around and all that. In an online space, I just take a little break, and I think that's good for everyone. It actually turned out that this particular course that I just showed you the regression analysis from got very highly rated. It was the highest rated course for the last 20 years. I think particularly because of the combination of the blended learning, Connect online classes, and the fact that everything was recorded so students could watch that back. That was really something that they appreciated. So this is me. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. But at this point, I think I'm going to hand it over to our next speaker.
Thank you both for sharing with us how you use Connect in your class. Thank you so much.
No worries.
In the interest of time, I'm now going to pass over to Dr. Wafa. You should have the presenter rights now and be able to change the slides.
Yes, I would like to thank you all for attending this webinar. The main objective of my session is to explain the impact of using technological tools on student performance. And we are going to compare the e-assessment to paper assessments that we have conducted during COVID-19 and the student perception towards the e-assessment and the tool we have used during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. At the beginning, I would like to share with you, sorry for this. I just want to start my part. Sorry for the navigation. Okay, I want to start with this survey. This is an online survey which was distributed by the British Council in order to understand the need of the educators in April and May during COVID-19. And we find that more than 9,600 respondents have completed this survey from 150 countries. And the main finding of this survey is that remote teaching is new for the majority of the educators. And the educators feel that they need more support and training on how to teach online and how to use technology. And they face the same challenges that we have faced during COVID-19, which is keeping students motivated, which is one of the main challenges that we face during our university closure, and the problem of internet connection. And of course, we all feel the internet connection problem, and how to prepare students for the exam. Again, the respondents were interested in sharing the knowledge and sharing the experience through forums, through webinars, and through communication. And this is the objective of my session or my presentation, is to share my experience with the attendees about what the British University in Egypt did during the COVID-19, and especially Faculty of Business Administration. And I just want to click next. So as we can see in this picture, we can see two students The student in the left side feels boring and is not motivated to study. However, we can see the second student in the right-hand side that he is exploring the solar system and he is motivated and involved in or engaged in the learning process. And this is actually what we mean by integrating technology into our curriculum, because technology itself, it is not a goal or not an objective. It's just a tool that can help us in achieving our learning outcomes. So we have now different types of students that can play games and simulation games and can they can spend hours on their mobiles and their laptops. However, when it comes to the classes, they cannot listen to their educators or their teachers more than 10 to 15 minutes. So how come we need to build our 21st century learning skills if we are not using 21st century instruction techniques? And this is actually what the UNESCO has announced in 2020, that technology is going to reshape universities by 2030. So as we said, that motivation is very important, and this has been stressed in previous presentations, as you saw in the previous presentations. So how can we integrate technology into our curriculum? At the beginning, we should identify the objectives, why we need to integrate technology. And after we identify the technologies, we should match these technologies with the technological tools we are using. For example, if one of my objectives to make my lectures accessible to my students whether teaching is on campus or online, so I can use, for example, a technological tool like Figuracy, and like previous professors tell us that he records the lectures to the students, which was very good for his students. Another objective, we can use technology to create interactive courses, interactive assignments, where we can use the virtual labs, we can use simulation games through our learning management system, and Connect is one of the powerful learning management systems that we have used in our university. We can make adaptive reading to the students using the SmartBook. So in order to, this is what we have done already in Faculty of Business Administration in the BU. We started our journey in 2017 by integrating technology into our curriculum in 15 modules in 2017. And what happened, and after that we have feedback from the students. We start to collect feedback through a survey. We start to make statistical analysis for the modules that use the interactive system. And once we see that we are in the right track, we start to integrate more modules. So in 2018, we started to integrate the technology using different technological tools in our modules, and we reached 40 modules. And 2019, we reached to 69 modules that integrate technology into teaching. And during COVID-19, we started to contact our publishers, and one of the great publishers that we have is McGraw Hill, and they started support for 3 hour modules that need to integrate the interactive system or the learning management system connect into our modules. And we have, during COVID-19, increased our modules to 85 modules. And this integration is not easy, because we have different challenges. And without the support of the university management and the faculty management, the dean of the faculty and the vice dean and the president of the university, without the support, this will be difficult to be integrated to this large number of modules. Because when we can find a professor who is good in technology and he likes the technology and can use it, as we saw in the different modules as statistics, for example. However, we cannot apply in the modules that the module leaders don't like technology. So in order to spread the technology and integrate it within the curriculum, you need to have the support of your management. After that, we start every year, we start to measure whether we were successful or not. So we start to see the impact of using the technology on the students. We start, this is of course sample of modules, 1 or 2 modules, not more, but we have a lot of modules. And we start to see, for example, the business math. And as my colleague said, that the interactive system is very powerful in the quantitative module. Before using the interactive system in 2016 and 2017, we were not using the interactive system, and we started to use it in 2018 in business math. We find that the A grade increased to 30%, and the failure rate decreased from 39 to 20%. Of course, we don't have genius students to have 30% A students. However, using the technology makes the quality of the students in understanding the curriculum is much higher. So also, when you are constructing your exam, you need to increase the quality of your exam to be compatible with your students. Okay. We have another example like business finance. We find that after using the technology or interactive system, we find that the A increased to 17% and the failure rate decreased. And we find that the average mark of the students who are using the technology in teaching increased by 6 marks. We find that the student mark increased by 6 marks. Introduction to retaining. This is one of the qualitative modules that we have, and we find that again, after using the interactive system into the curriculum, the percentage of A increased to 11%, and the failure rate decreased from 29 to 6%. And we find that the average mark of the student who is using the interactive system increased compared to those who was not using it last year, increased by 12 marks. Right. What happened back in COVID-19? In COVID-19, we find that we have orders from the Supreme Council to close our university. And we didn't suffer. Why we didn't suffer? Because we have the structure, we have the technology already involved in every module. So what we do, we start to record our lectures to our students using security. So students start to connect to the interactive system, watching the videos and the lectures. We again start to make online assessments, and we make it graded in order to be able to attract our students, because ungraded assessments will not attract the students. You have to motivate your students when you add certain activity programs, and students will not be motivated without they find grades on what they are doing. We have another issue that the Supreme Council also took a decision that all the exams should be either project or online assessment. So the Faculty of Business Administration took the initiative and decided to conduct online e-assessment, online assessment to all our quantitative modules, and only few qualitative, because in the qualitative you can make a project, you can send a case study, and the students can analyze, and you can upload it on the Turnitin. But however, in the quantitative, what can you do in the quantitative? How you can test your students in the quantitative module? It's very different. We have mathematics, we have statistics, we have accounting, the finance. All these are quantitative modules that it's difficult to be tested through case study, or even if this is available or suitable. We didn't teach our students how to solve the exams using case studies in quantitative modules. And so we took the initiative and we start to conduct our quantitative modules assessment online. And we use our learning management system, and one of the systems were McGraw Hill Connect. And as you can see, in, for example, the statistics module, again, we are having the statistics here too. We start to compare the traditional paper exam in 2019 with the online assessments that we have done on the interactive system. And as you can see, the A decreased from 29% to 20%. And the B and C and D grades nearly, maybe the D increased However, we find that the failure rate decreased from 18 to 13%. When we start to compare the mean, we find that the mean of the students in the paper assessment was 56 marks, and the mean of the students on the online assessment was 55, and this difference was not statistically significant. Again, we can look to another example, Introduction to Econometrics. This is one of the modules that has also online assessments during COVID-19. We find that the A decreased from 44% to 25%, and also the F, or the failure rate, decreased from 15% to 9%. Another example is the Mathematics of Finance, one of the very successful modules. Again, we can find that the A decreased from 11% to 8%. And by the way, this is paper assessment, and this one in the orange is online assessment. And we find that the failure rate also decreased from 35% to 24%. So someone can say, so what about cheating? Did the student cheat? When we are creating the online assessments, you are following certain criteria or certain policy in constructing your online assessment. If you didn't follow this, you will not be able to find success in the online assessment, because as we said, technology is a tool. If you use it correctly, you will find great results and you will be able to achieve your learning outcomes. But if you didn't use it in a proper way, you will find a very bad results. In the success, we have nearly 75% of our modules are successful in the online assessment. And as you can see, the failure rate, yes, decreased, little bit decreased. However, we have no significant difference between the paper assessment and the online assessment in the average mark of the students. This success happens because the module leaders start to use large pools of questions. Large pools of questions means that every student will have different version of the exam from his colleague. Even if they start to talk together or something like this, they will find that they have different questions. This is the first thing to succeed. And they start to use algorithmic questions, which means that even by chance, if we have one question appear to two students, everyone will have different numbers and also different results. And the third and the most important factor is that the exam time should equal to the exam question, which means that you have to put questions equal to the exam time. Every minute the student will finish the exam before the time of the exam, it's considered a cheating time for the student. So, as I said, if you start to think about online assessment, you can have this result. And this is unsuccessful result. As you see, that the 8 students in the paper assessment was 13%, and in the online assessment is 68%. And this is clear that there is cheating in this module. But when we start to investigate why we have few modules didn't succeed, we start to investigate. The first thing that we discovered that the students finished the exam questions before the time. So this is one of the shortcomings or the problem that if the module leader didn't take care of, he will have a very bad results like what you can see. The students start to create WhatsApp groups. They start to share the questions. But however, we are talking about the A and B and C students. They will never start sharing in the WhatsApp group except after they finish the exam first. So by having the exam equal to the question time, you are preventing the students from sharing or from helping each other. This is the first thing. Another problem we find that if you use the test bank questions and you depend on the test bank questions, we start to find that students are opening Google and they are opening their web browsers and start to write this question, searching for the answer on the text bank that are available on the internet, and they have the answer of the question. So this is the second problem. Of course, we didn't discover this. We know nothing about the online assessment and what we are going to face. However, by practice, we start to discover what happens. The students start to purchase the online test bank in order to have the answer and write it in the exam. So it's very important. If you are going to create online assessments for your students, you have to create your own questions besides the test bank questions. And if you are going to use the test bank question, you have to rephrase it. It is better that you have to rephrase it. Second big thing, the time factor. If you did this, you will be successful on online assessment. And one very good feature that has been added on Connect, which is the proctoring service, which may prevent the students from having to copy any question or to paste it or even to go out of the browser because it locks the browser, and it can record the video while the students having their exams. So we are hoping that by adding the proctoring service, we can decrease the cheating cases. So after we have our online assessment, we start to take or to measure our student perception regarding what we have done. If the online assessment was successful, was it useful for them and to have their perception. We have 379 students who completed our survey, and we start to ask them about the ease of use of the interactive system in the online assessment. And as you can see, that the majority tend to see that our online platform was easy to use in the assessment. Before the assessment, during the assessment back, we have, in order to avoid that some students have certain problem while he is logging to the online system, we need to help the student if he face any problem. So we start to open a Zoom session and send the links to the students during the exam. We are available online. If you have any problem, log to the Zoom session, share your screen, and show us what is actually your problem to solve it. And this was really successful. So the students see that the online help that we have provided them through the Zoom session in their final assessment was really helpful, and the support was very good. We start before the graded assessment to make several mock exams similar to the online assessment. It's with a timer, and the questions are algorithmic, and we have different and unique exams for each student. So the majority again of the students see that this mock exam changed them on the actual exam and was useful. And in general, we can see that students are satisfied with our experience during COVID-19. And finally, we have asked the students a question whether they prefer the online assessment or the paper assessment. And we have 169 students see that the online assessment is much better. However, this result needs to be more investigated because maybe they like the online assessment because they can easily find help from their colleagues, maybe because they can have their exams from any place, anywhere, and they don't have to come to the university for having their exam. So this question is going to be redistributed among students again after we have proctored exams, after using the service of the proctoring in the online assessment. And finally, I want to end my session with this statement that technology will not replace teachers. However, teachers who use technology will probably replace those who do not use technology. And I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wafa, for sharing your journey with Connect. It's fascinating to see how you've transformed your class and how students can utilize it more effectively, their time. It's like a smarter way to teach and learn. I particularly like how you have mentioned technology is a tool, and it really depends on us how we utilize it. Like we can either make it work, or if we use it in a way, it will just be bad for us. So that's a very interesting point that you've highlighted. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to all the speakers who have joined us. Thank you to all the attendees. We know this is a very busy time for back to university and everything, so thank you for logging in. If you have any questions for the presenters, please let us know. You can type them in the Q&A box that's on the right side, and we can address it to them. If you have any questions at all, please let us know. Otherwise, if you have no questions, as I can see, everything is clear, then time is up anyway, so we can close. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Zainab. You're welcome. You can get in touch with us on our social channels. So that's, or if you have any questions for us, you can email us at marketing.emea@education.com. As my colleague Asfana mentioned, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar with you via email. You will also have the option to download the certificate of participation. So, and this email will be sent to you in a week's time, so watch out for that. And you tried to participate, but it was disabled. Zainab, you can type your question here. And we'll be able to take it. Or you can email us at marketing.emea. Thank you so much. Owing to time, we'll see you soon for our other webinar. Thank you again for joining us, and have a good evening. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.